what I want, I do what I like. I know watch face, I know fear nobody.
Randy,
Carl, this is it.
we've been talking about, I think, for a year.
For a year. For what, a year and a week now, exactly.
Totally. Yeah, we've been talking about doing a podcast for a while. Thank you for making this happen. This is kind of like one of our meetings, but recorded for everybody to listen in. What the hell have we been talking about, Randy?
The Olympics.
Tell me everything. I want to know.
Oh, man. We've been talking about, it's been since the beginning of even deciding if I really wanted to do this or not, all the way through what training was going to look like, what recovery was going to look like, what the pathway was going to look like. There's probably a misconception out there that there's like one clear pathway to the Olympics, and everybody's is actually pretty unique given when they joined and at what point they decided to jump in. And then we moved into like really deciding to do this and creating a team and a support system and clarifying our relationship, and now 2 weeks out for going for it.
Mm-hmm. It's insane. So let's just take it back to the moment you learn that breaking is going to be in the Olympics, and how do you get involved? Where do we cross paths? And how are things going? Basically, that's kind of what I want to get to. I want to just get to like, how are you doing? Are you okay?
How are you doing? I've actually had kind of an interesting way of getting involved. I first got involved actually on the Athletes Council of USA Breaking, which was going for getting approved to be the NGB at that time. And it was Sunny who brought me onto that. So I was with a couple others. El Nino was on that. Box One was on that. Morris was on that. And it was in hopes of like having our own NGB, basically, that was outside of ballroom, and that didn't go through. Then there was like a whole kind of like switch up. Everything was up in the air for a little bit, and Breaking for Gold approached me about also being on the Athletes Council, but I was leaving for tour and didn't feel like I would have the time to commit to like the weekly meetings and everything. And that was all even before I considered like going the athlete route. And then post tour came back, and B-Boy Wicket actually reached out to me first and was like, we're building something here for the Olympics, and can I put you in touch with my friend Carl? And I was like, I don't know who this Carl guy is, but yeah, sure. And so that started exactly a year ago. I think we just hit our 1 year meetup anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And from there I started working with Bonita and Flow, and this was also like Sunny, Vicky, Snap One, Pepsi, Jeff Rose in there, Gravity, Morris, and even just still everybody trying to figure out what this was and how it was forming, and what the best way to approach it for longevity was as well, I think. And then we got to about a week away from the last qualifier and thought the rules were one way and they were another. And I had to jump into the last qualifier to be able to like continue to be in the race for jumping on the team. And it was all very last minute. I was still really unsure of like if this was something that I could dedicate my time and energy to at that point. Ended up getting bronze at that qualifier, where my goal was literally just to make top 16 so that I'd be eligible to go to the nationals. And went to the nationals, lost in top 8, but was ranked off voting and point system 5th. So just barely missed, making the team on that one. But I think that kind of lit the beginning of really wanting to go on this journey. And there was still a lot of like ebb and flow, a lot of figuring out how to balance my current work life, because I already work in dance, with the training needs of this and how to fund that. And then, I don't know what snapped, but something around the LA qualifier this year, I was just like, you know what? I'm willing to like really risk it and go all in and pause the other stuff for a while, pause the industry dance, pause teaching, pause all that, to commit the time that it's going to take, which then found out that it was only 2 months between that first qualifier and the nationals. So that is where we are at right now. I'm like fully in. I've not been working for the last couple months so that I can be training full time. I've got a trainer. I've got you, Carl. I've got some coaches. And I've been, hitting it hard. I'm entering the race late, so I've got some distance to make up for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. So let's just take it back to the first supposedly NGB, which is a national governing body, which was USA Breaking, I believe.
Yes.
You were asked to be part of that as a member of the organization,
Correct.
which was to govern breaking, with the intention of standardizing maybe things, if it was to become a sport or featured as a sport, like in the Olympics, that there was a governing body. Anyways, for reasons that I don't care to know at this moment about, because in the scene it sounds a little dramatic, but maybe it's not as dramatic as they make it seem. That didn't happen, but then came Breaking for Gold USA as the new potential NGB. The official one is USA Dance.
Correct.
That does govern ballroom and I believe some other styles of dance, and including breaking right now. But breaking is run or managed, to the best of my knowledge, by Breaking for Gold USA. But when Breaking for Gold USA came about, were you also asked to be part of the council, or and why did you say no to that? What was it that happened?
At that moment, I feel like I had just gotten off of USA Breaking, where I was actually sitting on 2 councils. I was on the athlete council, and then myself and Asia One actually were asked to start like an ethics committee, which we had another person there that was more qualified, but neither of us were particularly qualified. And there was drama going on. And it felt a little bit like a leave it to the B girls to like figure out, which was interesting because the problematic side was like actually coming from the B-boys in the scene. And so I think I just felt a little overwhelmed with like committees, and I personally felt a little not prepared for that role. And then I was leaving for tour where we're doing, 6 to 7 shows a week in 5 to 6 different cities. And I was like, I honestly don't think I have the bandwidth right now to do my due diligence. Like I could say yes and like, have my name attached to it and all of that, but I wouldn't be effective in that role. And so I ended up turning it down, which, they have Maka now. They have some really great B-girls on that council. So it worked out great. But yeah, I didn't feel prepared, nor did I have the time to adequately prepare for that role.
Mm-hmm. And to be completely fair, anybody trying to start an organization of any kind is very brave and courageous. Yes. And if you can do that without creating some chaos and without there being emotions stirred up and a little bit of drama, then tell me how you did it, because in the history of mankind, humankind, I was thinking about the B-boys, I guess, Freudian slip. In the history of humankind, I don't think that has ever been possible. But the thing that I want to kind of like focus in on is this idea of maybe not feeling qualified. Yeah. But you were invited. Thus, to some degree, you were qualified. In your head, if you had to embrace the qualifications, what would qualify you to be a council member on an NGB like this? Like USA Breaking before or now Breaking for Gold USA? What do people see in you that say, we need Randi?
I feel like my ability to communicate is high on that list. It was actually Sunny who brought me in after we had hung out for a weekend at a Break Free event. And I think it's my communication, and it's also, I'm not like strongly emotionally tied to a big crew that has beef with other crews. I'm pretty unbiased when it comes to that. And so I think that's helpful on something like this, where it really has to be about the overall scene of breaking and not old beef or like crew versus crew or bring in your friends or that kind of thing. And I think they're doing a great job of doing that and finding people that are able to do that. And I think that was probably one of the draws, is that I'm pretty neutral when it comes to the things in the scene. But I don't know that I like was thinking about that when they asked me. I think I was more thinking of like imposter syndrome.
Because you're a fucking great dancer and you're an amazing performer and an athlete, and you have, from what I have seen, consistently displayed a high level of emotional intelligence. That would be why I would pick you. So I'm just gonna say it, and I think that's obvious when you spend some time with you. So if that's okay, that's what I see.
I appreciate that. I receive it.
Okay, that's cool. And it's interesting because you're bringing something up that I think is very important in the breaking scene, and something that I've been hesitant to even say publicly that I am supporting breaking, which is this idea of there being beef. And it's the nature of breaking. It's hip hop. It's born out of the need to find something to express yourself when you come from a place of minimal resources, oppression, and maybe not having the tools and language to express yourself in a way that you can be heard, to allow that to happen. And breaking has that. And as breaking expanded and grew over time, the bonds between those who practiced together, hung together, was as strong as the bonds of a family. It was really family. And those families, more than teams, were crews. And to me, it sounds like the crews are almost like gangs without the crime. I'm just making this up, so shoot me if you need to. I don't fucking know. But that's my interpretation. So there's a lot that comes from that. It is what I'm saying completely wrong? Am I speaking out of pocket here?
No. I'm like, it's actually like really historically point on. Like, and I would be wrong to say that like I don't have beef in the scene or didn't have beef with individual people. And I think it was maybe that I just like, I don't know, have been quieter about it, or people don't see me as somebody that like has a lot of issues throughout the community. But I actually think that it's necessary to have some beef, and it's like part of the competitive factor as well. You always want to win, but there's certain people you like want to beat, and I think those are like two different feelings. And you know, when I started 14 years ago, I had way more issues back then. There's like a lot of us that have kind of grown up and like relaxed and talked it out, or just like shown respect to each other later. but I think it's a necessary ingredient to breaking. And that's also what makes it hard, right? Like, how do we keep this energy of family, like you said, and bonds and competitiveness and all of that, and then also move into this arena of like fairness and even like team versus crew, right? Now we're building teams where it's who's the most capable, not who's spent the most time together and feels like a crew or a family. So it's definitely balancing two different worlds. And I think part of what helps me is that I grew up playing sports. So I understand a team. I understand putting a team over your individual ego for a moment for the betterment of the club or whatever the case, the city, the school. And so it's really interesting to watch this shift into this new world where like you may be teamed up with somebody that you don't like.
Yeah, that previously was from an opposing crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this kind of reminds me, you grew up playing soccer. I guess it reminds me of me growing up in Spain and soccer being the national sport. And anytime it was Madrid, Barcelona, it was like the biggest game ever. So that rivalry is important to level up. But the beef within the breaking scene gets personal almost. And it's more than the craft or the game. And I guess that's the nature of it. But something's happening now, which is this beef, this rivalry is going from something that is personal to something that has more to do with the evolution of the craft. But it's something that from what I observe, people have a hard time, especially in the breaking scene. They have a hard time expressing that. They just can't articulate. And sometimes it comes out as, oh, I'm more neutral or whatever. But then again, you're like, no, I want to kill everybody. Yeah.
It's too hard of a dance and an art form to do if you're actually like a neutral person, I believe. I'm like, there's something a little self-destructive in us breakers that it's similar, I think, to like boxing and other things where like you're inevitably gonna get hit. You can't be good enough to escape like crashing, messing yourself up. Like,
yeah, it's the ultimate like one-upmanship.
Yeah,
you're constantly one-upping, and whoever can continue to do that is the one that wins, and whoever can't do that will get hurt and loses. And it's combat sport without contact.
Yes, the contact comes from the floor.
Exactly, which I want to get to this because I think over the last 20 years, mixed martial arts has really become a thing where people admire it and can see it beyond the violence, and they're like, wow, this is a legitimate sport, and look how smart and articulate and just capable these fighters are beyond just like, bashing their heads in. And I think that's something that's missing in breaking right now. And I'll give you an example. In 2009, B-Boy Wicket asked me to fly out to South Korea to attend an event called R16. And I was like, cool. So I'm going to a dance battle? Like I was just like, this sounds really silly. I like breaking. I've seen it. I think it's cool, but it's still, to me, my judgmental self was just looking down on it. And this is the honest truth. I was looking down on it because I just thought, it's just two people dancing, and whoever dances the best wins. That's kind of silly. But then I got there, and it was the Renegade Rockers representing the U.S., and I had only seen them, together. They had come and trained with me before. We worked together at Acro Sports in San Francisco, so we had a relationship. I had seen them practice, but I had never seen them in competition mode. And something happened there where they organized themselves to be ready to go into this crew battle. And I was like, wait a second. this is highly strategic, highly tactical, very well orchestrated. The communication is advanced. They communicate with each other in ways that I've never seen before. The moves that they're doing, I can't even get close to them. I can't even break them down. And then when I saw them battling, I was like, okay, this is not what I thought it was. It's something completely different. And unless you've seen it in real life, you can't describe what that is. And I think that's why we're talking right now. And that's why I am so interested in this, because I want everybody to see this. Why should people care about breaking, in your opinion?
I think breaking is one of the pinnacles of artistic expression and like high level sports performance. And regardless of like, I know everyone's worried it's going to become a sport and all of that, but like you can tell even in these like higher level Olympics battles, you can tell who's still like having a conversation with their art and who's running through moves, right? And even if the general public can't articulate what that is, they're going to say they feel somebody more. And I think this is a now sport, right? Or an art form that makes people feel. And it can be such a range of emotions that it makes people feel. I feel like people watch it and they feel empowered to go out and do something crazy themselves, or they watch it and they like feel that kind of like combative angriness, or they watch it and they just feel pure joy. But it makes people feel, and whether or not they mean to, they become invested in the individuals. People get favorites. It's very like, I don't know if you're into like anime or any of that, but it's like even DC, Marvel, people have their favorite characters, right? Like I really see breakers as characters. They've developed this like superhero, superhuman abilities. We have a different name, right? We don't go by our like government name. We go by some name we've made up. There's a way that we dress. There's a way that we even put content out online. There's a way that we express ourselves, and all of it boils down to expression. And I know that a lot of sports, like, everybody's expressing themselves through sport, but this expression is so like purely, clearly art form that I just think it's like such a beautiful way for the world to see and appreciate the value of art. And it's hopefully bridging that gap, because these sports teams, people make so much money off sports. And like, even though during the pandemic, arts got everyone through the pandemic, right? We're now coming out of the pandemic and we're struggling all over again to like prove our worth to the world, that we're worth putting time and money into. But like, we're who entertains you when you're burnt out and tired of your job and tired of the daily things that you have to deal with in life. We're who brings you out of that and gives you an escape. And like, I'm hoping that by putting it in this sports arena, it's given the same value that sports are. And hopefully that trickles into other art forms.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned this, because breaking as an art, not as a sport now, just as an art, is an amazing piece of entertainment if you're watching it. And especially if you're there in person, you really get invested and are entertained. There's not a moment that feels dull. It's exciting. But sometimes what's missing is the inspiration piece, and the inspiration is missing that transcends breaking. And this is just my own narrow opinion, of course, is the inspiration is missing because there's a lack of relatability. It feels so advanced and so foreign that it's almost like only a few can do it. But the truth about breaking is that it's extremely inclusive. Like anybody, even a person who doesn't have a lot of rhythm, like myself, I don't have great rhythm. Like I feel like I can break because there's different places for me to start. So, for example, for me, I feel much safer starting on the ground than standing. I don't make me top rock, but footwork, that's cool. That's inspiring. What do you think it is that right now? And I asked you this because you've toured, and you've been on stages, and you performed breaking in a way that not only entertains, but in a way also makes it accessible. What is it that is missing in the high performance world of breaking that needs to be captured or like bottled or like shared for people to see so that they feel less maybe intimidated by breaking? And it's not only the moves, it's also those characters. Sometimes, I remember being like, wait, am I safe here? you know?
It's interesting because I think part of it is just seeing more of it, right? Like there's other sports that if you look at don't necessarily seem inviting, or like if you're watching like high level gymnastics, you're not exactly like, oh, I could probably go out back and like throw a couple of those things, right? You're going to have to find somewhere to enter this. And because it's not around in the public eye as much, I feel like it feels more intimidating than what it might later when it's been viewed more often. Most of us didn't find it in a studio. Most of us literally stumbled upon it somewhere. Big brothers or sisters were doing it. People were doing it at school during recess. The way that I found it was I found B-boys at a concert, and they were like not performing there. They were just dancing in the corner. And then they told me the rec center that they practice at, and I showed up, so it's tricky because when you say like, how do we get more people involved? Like part of me really wants to get people involved, and part of me doesn't want to open it in that way, because if you found it organically, I feel like it just creates a different approach to it that is more organic, right? It's not learning it in a studio. It's not like learning in front of a mirror. It's not showing up for 1 hour twice a week to practice it. It's like getting involved in the community and being a part of the community. And I've felt this in a couple different communities, right? I've done breaking, I've done house, I've done all styles, I've done hip hop, like these different communities. And it's, you can be somebody that does it, or you can be somebody that's involved and lives it and is a practitioner of the thing. So I think seeing it around more will make people maybe want to find it, but I hope it stays to the people that like it calls to, instead of, I don't know that I necessarily want it just like accessible to everyone and their dog,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that. And this is something that comes up for me. I was just thinking about my grandson. He loves skating. He watches skating all the time. So for him, it's entertainment, but then he wants to imitate it. So he imitates skating. But then when he gets on the board, there's a price of admission.
Yes.
It's hard to do, and it's painful when you fall. So not everybody can do it. In other words, not everybody can break at the level that a pure practitioner, somebody who lives and breathes breaking can, but everybody can get access to breaking. And this is just my thesis. Breaking was exploited maybe at the in the late 80s, 90s or whatever, in a way that was for pure entertainment, and it was so watered down that the essence of it disappeared, and it almost like ridiculed the craft itself. Furthermore, at a professional level, it set a standard for the artists who was breaking that was so low that it was not viable to continue to do that. Now we're seeing a potential second wave of exploitation, which is, okay, instead of it being pure entertainment, why don't we attach it to sport? Sport at a professional level is pure entertainment. That's the reason there's money in the thing. So it's complicated. So I hear the sentiment of you wanting to protect it and not just kind of open it up.
It's interesting looking at it that way, though, because I feel like the industry, right, like movies and commercials and all of these things, exploited it in a way that like people who did not break were representing breaking. And, you know, there's Flowmaster, Wicked, they were in movies. This is not like and I think that's why the breaking community has such a feeling about those of us that enter the industry, right? It's like, because historically it's really been, breaking has been misrepresented there, which is always a little funny to me too, because I'm like, don't you want people that really can represent it then going over there to, but I also understand where it's like, you know, the industry has historically exploited it, so why are you, you know, backing that? So there's two sides to that, but I think this presents a really unique opportunity where, although there may be exploitation, if we can be smart about it, it's actual breakers getting the platform. Versus the industry where like a jazz dancer would all of a sudden like drop into some weird footwork or a freeze with their toes pointed, and like that would be what the public saw as breaking, right? Now they're gonna see actual breakers, and it's just if we can learn the business quick and the business side of things quick enough to protect ourselves as it catapults up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the learning curve is very steep for that. So there's going to be mistakes.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But it has to be done by somebody who's in breaking. It can't be a fool like me saying, "Hey, this is how you run a breaking company."
It has to be, I think, in collaboration, because if we're too proud to seek help, we won't know what we don't know. So there are people that have, like you, that have done this in other sports, and other platforms that bring knowledge to the table. And then if it can be met with those of us that understand breaking, right, and there's no or less ego involved in that collaboration, then something really beautiful can grow out of that. Like I don't know that we can do it alone. But we absolutely need to be at the steering wheel. We just need some like additional engine parts.
Totally. Yeah, it's a very complex world to navigate, and because there's a lot of emotions around it, not only from a place of wanting to control, but rather to protect that which allowed it to get to this point, because it's the essence of breaking, that it can potentially be so guarded that it becomes fragile. And in order for it to grow and adapt, it needs to be less controlled, and thus giving a little bit away from a place of leadership is important. I think that's what is happening right now in breaking, is that the leadership within the breaking community is being elevated. Some are taking positions in national governing bodies. Others are taking positions within the athletic sphere of things, so trying to go to the Olympics. Others are within the industry, like you are right now in Hollywood, basically, and trying to stay true to what is at the core in a way that is leading others to do the same. And that's very hard, and it's something that I don't think people are fully aware of how hard it is, what they're actually trying to do.
Yeah, I definitely think we all have to carry a lot of grace at this time because inevitably, there's going to be a lot of stumbling. Um, so if we kind of write off everybody that stumbles, we're going to be left with no one. You know, it's going to be a journey. Having been in Hollywood helps me in a lot of ways because I've already stumbled through that business world and failed a lot, and been taken advantage of a lot and learned a lot there. And there's definitely some mirroring happening here now that it moves into the breaking world.
For sure. Let's shift gears. Let's get into you as a performer, as a dancer, as a breaker who now is on the path to qualifying for a Team USA and then hopefully getting it to go all the way to the Olympics. Give me a just brief history of how you got to this point. Like you mentioned, you got into breaking at that concert. You went to that rec center, started practicing. Yeah, give me just a little arc of history until this present day.
Totally. I always wanted to dance. I would dance like at school with friends. We'd make up little routines at recess, and even into high school, like a lot of the basketball team that I would travel with, we'd like dance before games and stuff. But my parents really wanted me in sports and wouldn't put me in any dance classes. And so when I got to college, I went to this concert. It was The Roots. And
Wow.
there were B-boys in the corner, and I like looked creepy. I was like just standing there staring at them the whole time. And finally one came up and he was like, "Hey, you've been here a while. Like if you're interested, this is where we practice." And it took me a couple weeks to kind of like get up the courage, but I went to the rec center that they practiced at, and a couple B-boys showed me a couple things. And I think also because I'd played sports, I understood practice. And so when they would show me something, I'd literally just stay in the little corner of the rec center, like away from everybody, and like practice the 6-step over and over and over again, practice CCs over and over and over again. And I think because they saw me actually like practicing what they were giving me, they'd come back and give me a little more, until I started to feel like, you know, when I showed up at practice, I was one of them. And so for the first, I would say 5 years, I was only breaking. Like I had a crew. We were street styles. I like would travel to battles. We would travel down to freestyle sessions, like carpool. And then I got into, within that same scene, I got into some popping and some locking and some house from a dancer named Kevin O'Keefe, or KO. And this is in Colorado because I went to school in Colorado. And after about 5 years, I had graduated. I stayed a couple more years, and then I was like, okay, I want to move back to California, but I'm going to move to LA instead of the Bay just to be around more dance. Not to get into the industry, but to be around more dance. And once I moved here, I realized that to work as a dancer, especially as a female, I think it's easier for males to like live just off freestyle, especially breaking. But as a female, you have to adapt. And so that's when I started getting into classes a little more, tried to figure out choreography, and got into the industry side because I was working at Starbucks, and then I switched it to Apple when I moved out here. And I was working this side job to like afford to live out here. And at one point I really was like, I don't want to do anything but dance, but I can't make a living off breaking. So how do I pivot to make a living off doing what I love? And I love other styles. It wasn't like I forced myself to like learn these other things. I enjoyed all these other things. I never really went into ballet or jazz or contemporary because those weren't things that I enjoyed. So yeah, as I got more into like understanding choreography, understanding even like staging and things like this in the industry, I got presented with an opportunity to go tour Japan And that was actually with Why Not and Wicked. And Marie Poppins, Bionic, like some of the most epic, Tony Gogo, like some of those most epic street dancers. Kite from Japan was on that one, like Fish Boy. And it allowed me, well, it forced me to quit at Apple because I was going to be gone for too long to stay on. And it was the first push of like, oh, I can live off this. Like I can make a living off of this. And it was definitely a struggle. I got myself into a lot of debt. But when I came back, I didn't go back to Apple. I just decided that I was going to like push for the dance world. And so I always maintained my breaking, but I wasn't focused on the training in the same way. And I was really enjoying the all styles world of things. I was also newly out. Like I came out after I had already started breaking.
Mm.
And I would still say that the breaking world is not the most queer friendly of the dance styles. And it's gotten markedly better, but even 14 years ago, it definitely wasn't. And so I think that was another draw of going into house. And I even started whacking and going into some of these places that were actually historically queer, which is a whole nother conversation because I feel like it's moving away from that. But
Wow.
it just felt friendlier and I felt like I could be more myself. And I was dealing, like we talked about, with some beef with some B-girls here in LA. And I think I just was like, I love dance too much to be like not enjoying and not being my full self in this one world. And so I think that was a necessary kind of diversion to all styles. Because I learned more about how to express myself through movement, and I learned more about who I was. And then now that I feel more solid in it, I don't mind going into this other world. It was just too hard to find myself in that world. But 2018 or 2019, a couple things happened that really pulled me back towards breaking. One was actually that I went and first time I ever met Vicky, I went to do a 2v2 expo battle with her in the Bay because one of our mutual friends couldn't do it anymore and suggested me. And so, I literally met Vicky with her picking me up from the airport to like go battle together. And we're like, hey, nice to meet you.
That's hilarious.
And then Red Bull started the B-Girl Cyphers, and I didn't get an invite to LA. And I I was a little salty, but also I'd been in the all styles world at that point more so. But I was like, oh, F this. So Florida had an open prelim. I flew myself to Florida. I entered the open prelim and I ended up being a finalist. I ended up coming in second out there, which qualified me to then go to nationals.
Wow.
So I kicked down the door and forced my way into the Rebel B-Girls. You're not gonna leave me out. And then ended up that year going to IBE and some other things. And at this point I was still very much doing all styles, but it was starting to draw me back into the breaking world. And then pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a very interesting journey. During pandemic, I started an online course that was actually floor work, so an all styles approach to the floor. That blew up. It did really well.
And this is Omega Flow.
Omega Flow. I was not expecting it. I was kind of like, I'm really bored. I'm getting out of shape. I need something to keep me feeling purposeful. And it grew into this thing where I was able to hire other teachers. I trained somebody in the Omega Flow curriculum of month 1 and month 2, and had her teaching it. It's still going to this day, even online. But that got me just more on the floor again. And so all these little things just started pulling me back just before this kind of like blow up of the Olympics. But I think that's why even when the Olympics started, I was like, am I back? Am I doing this? Like, breaking isn't something you can dabble in and stay highly competitive. Like, you can stay in the ciphers and just be dabbling it all day. But if you want to be highly competitive, there's like a lot of discipline and time that goes into it. And it took me a moment to decide for myself whether I was gonna dive that deeply back into it like I had been doing when I started.
Yeah, it literally sounds like going pro. Like,
Yes.
going
Yeah.
pro means you have to go full time, all in, and you have to pick a path. Otherwise, it's just not gonna happen.
Yeah. And it's difficult because, you know, the industry in its own way, you also have to be going pro, right? Like, you have to be showing up to the classes, to the auditions, showing your face, like, in that world. And these are two pretty separate worlds still. So I can feel that I've like stepped out of that one into this one. There's no like evenly straddling the line here.
Yeah, so here we are. You're not on Team USA.
I am not.
You're not internationally ranked because you can't be invited to go onto these things. Correct. Until you're nationally ranked, and it has to be by being on Team USA. And in 2 weeks, 2 weekends from now, you're going to be battling. And in order for you to be on the team, you have to place top 4.
Correct.
In order for that to happen, that means that one person who is currently on the team at least needs to be off the team.
Correct.
There's going to be an upset. How do you feel about this?
I have two very, like, I feel like I love being the underdog, and I love upsetting things and kind of like proving people wrong and shaking up the status quo. You know, I think even just being a queer person, like, we're very used to doing that on a daily basis. And then I have another side that, like, I genuinely care about each of these girls that's on the team. And in a perfect world, I would love to just be added and not have to replace somebody. And I know that they've all been working really hard to be, you know, everyone that's on the team deserves the spot that they earned. And then it's just having to be like, and I deserve it too. Like, it's not an either or. And we'll just kind of see what the battle says. But I am fighting this like voice in the back of my head that almost is like, you don't deserve to be on there. They've already been doing it. They've been working hard. Like, don't fuck this up, essentially, for them.
Well, here's and this is just for people listening, so they get a little insight into what's happening. There are people who have been on the circuit to be part of Team USA since the inception or the available option of doing that. And a lot of them invested in going to multiple events. They invested a lot of money, a lot of time into going to multiple events last year so that they could qualify for nationals and through nationals to get on the Team USA. I think it was 6 events that they had to go to, which is a lot. That's a lot of trips. If you average $1,000 for a trip, that's at least $6,000 that you invested just to go to these events on weekends. By the way, you went to one, which was part of the rule book. The rule book said if you go to one and you place top, I think it was top 4, or I forget what the rule was.
I think if you go to one, you're eligible to.
To do the to enter nationals as in the prelims, which means that you have to even qualify for the bracket battle.
Correct.
Right. So you took 3rd in Arizona last year. After training for maybe a month, I think. So that was the first upset. Then nationals didn't go as planned, so you didn't make Team USA because you hadn't accrued all the points necessary, and you didn't place amongst the top 2, which was the 2 things that you had to do to make it out of the team. And after that, you were basically kind of like, well, you're not on the team, so you're kind of out of sight, which is the truth. But but you've never stopped training. Furthermore, that was the thing that gave you the fire to continue to train as if you were on the team.
Correct.
You just haven't been able to go to any events until you went to the one in LA, which was 2 months ago or a month and a half ago. I forget exactly when it was, which qualified you for nationals, and here you are. And this is kind of the chance. So you belong 100%, but I think from maybe a more like visual perspective coming from the official channels, it seems like you're just kind of a drop-in. But that's not the case. You built something, and I just want you to kind of share with me. I know a lot, of course, of your process because I've been deeply invested. But just kind of break down for me, what are the steps that you've taken to do everything in your power to be where you are right now, ready to upset some so that you can be on the team? What does that look like? And I just want this to be painted as a picture for people to realize how much effort goes into this. That it's not like you just show up on event day and hope that you make it.
Yes. I am essentially going a little broke at the moment. I've stepped away from any jobs. An industry job means 8 to 10 hours in rehearsal and a potentially 12-hour shoot day, which then you're too drained to really do much around. I've stepped away from the All Styles world quite a bit. I haven't been entering any of those battles or even really showing up as much as I usually like to for the community. I've definitely sacrificed time with the dance community in LA in order to focus in on this training. I've definitely sacrificed time with my partner, and she's a big reason at the moment. She's actually just helped cover rent for the month because I couldn't. And then I've added a trainer who's also really donating her time because my budget is very small as far as what I can pay. So essentially now I'm training 2 to 3 times a week, just gym training, and then 5 to 7 days a week breaking. But then that means that I have to get the recovery time in. I need to be eating right. So I need to be, it's crazy what takes time. Like, it's not just the time that you show up to practice. It's like after practice, I need to make sure that I can get home pretty quickly to prepare the right kind of meal. That's going to take maybe an hour and a half. And then getting in the hot tub or getting in an Epsom salt bath and stretching. And I really love going out. A lot of the ways that I've become a dancer has been through going out, through parties, through cyphers. And I haven't been doing that. Partying has really dropped off. And that was also another way that I connected with a lot of my friends. So not seeing a lot of people anymore. It's become my full focus, studying, watching the international battles that are happening. So I know what the competition is looking like. Watching these other qualifiers, just watching breaking in general. It's especially since the LA qualifier. So now it's exactly 2 months from the LA qualifier to nationals. I've kind of dropped off the face of the earth here.
Yeah, you put yourself in a training camp and you're in full focus, concentration mode to battle.
Yep.
I just think this is important for people to hear, because what happens often is people look into, something like breaking or a sport that's maybe less prevalent than basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh yeah, you just kind of show up and you spin on your back, right? You just kind of do that thing. But then you have, somebody like Gravity, who is highly fit. This past weekend, couldn't do the finals because he had just missed his nutrition a little bit because he was focused on his kid who was entering to qualify for nationals, which he did. But he didn't feed, Gravity didn't feed himself, so he had to withdraw from the final, had to take second, whatever. No big deal. Gravity is doing great. But you leave out one little thing, and that costs you the medal.
Yes.
And the thing is, no medals, no money.
Yeah.
No money, no rent. No rent, no home. Now what? Are you back to Starbucks? Like, what happens? Like, how do we do this?
It's a gamble, too, because you won't know until you've already gone broke.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I can, like, dip a toe in and be like, oh, it's not working out. It's like you have to 100% go for it in hopes of maybe getting sponsored. And then if that sponsorship doesn't go through, you've already dug yourself into a hole.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's risky and it's scary and it's interesting because I feel like I've now done it twice to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I did it when I was younger, when I moved to LA, and I was like, I want to be a dancer. I'm going to make that work. And then I got to a place where I was like, oh, I'm living very comfortably, have a career, have like my stuff together. And now I'm going to do it to myself all over.
Mm-hmm.
And like potentially throw this career out the window, because if this journey takes 2 years, like who knows if there's going back at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I know a lot of the people that are in the running, this is what they're doing right now.
Yeah. And this is why, and I don't fucking know if I can even do this. I don't know if I'm capable. I have a sense I can, but this is why I stick around. Because the first time you and I spoke, I asked you, so what's the deal? And you said, I want to be able to be this. You basically said, I want to be able to do this and to do this in a way where it at least allows me to play a role in society where I can afford rent, food, and continue to be creative and be myself and contribute in a meaningful way if that's even possible. So my sense is yes, of course you can. But in order to do that, you need to have an infrastructure that is going to support you and your craft. And I think that's what you're doing different this time, where it's not a gamble anymore. This is a cautious risk you're taking that has a time horizon that is not far enough out that it's going to kill you, but it's far out enough that you're going to get a real proof of concept. And my sense is that you are building infrastructure. Just the shirt that you're wearing right now, which you can talk about. I would love to hear about it. But that's a piece of the ecosystem of your business that you're creating that represents your personal brand, that allows you to create a conversion mechanism for people to pay you money, whether it's now directed towards training and qualifying for the Olympics, or later on being able to be part of your cash flow that builds your business and thus allows you to do the thing that you do best, which is sharing your dance through teaching, entertainment, or performance. Yeah. And the question is, if all those things that I just said are true and you believe what I believe to some degree, for what? Like, what's on the other side? Like, let's say you make it to the Olympics. Let's say you make it to a point where, yeah, Randy, you are it. You did the thing. You're proven. For what? What impact does that make?
I mean, personally, it means that I no longer have to fit my art into other industries or other packages to sell it, essentially, or to make money, to live. It means that I can then live just as me, which is the goal and has been the goal in the industry too, right? But it's few and far between where you get to like just be you. And on a greater scale, I think what I want most out of this is to be able to build something Like, I would love if I have the backing of a medal or some sort of win or like the notoriety of that, right? Like that allows me to take Omega, which I love so much, and like get sponsorships to build that out, to have an actual physical space so it's not just online, to be able to do retreats and like longer things with them, to maybe even like down the line when I feel capable of it, open a breaking school or something that feels like it gives the access we're talking about without it like being studio based, like it's still community based.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I personally do all of this in large part because I enjoy the community. I enjoy community aspect. I enjoy it's the family of your choice moments. And I would love to be able to like take that and funnel it back down into the community. And not even just for breaking, but for street dance and club dance styles in general. You know, a lot of even like house and whacking and locking and these other things in LA, they have to exist within these industry studios. And they're trying to survive within these industry studios. There's not necessarily a place that's like dedicated to that part of the community. And we're struggling to find space to session and yeah, I would love to use whatever resources that brings, right? Because that's really what it's all about. There's so many people here that would do it. It's even like, those that are getting the spotlights are not the only ones that have these like dreams, right? But it's a lack of resources.
Mm-hmm. And basically one of the things that you're doing is you're venturing down this path, not only because it's cool to prove yourself and to push yourself and see what is truly possible through your physical expression, but also paving the way for those who are to come. Because once you crack that ceiling, that glass ceiling, it's much easier to get through for everybody else. Now somebody's done it, and it just takes one. And it's interesting because, talking to Vicky LeVix, who you mentioned, and that's when you entered that 2-on-2 with her. She was the first woman to qualify for Team USA. She was qualified even before Nationals of last year. She was already on the team. She was the only one that was there. First ever, according to the rule book, Team USA member for breaking. And she trains outdoors. She has to go outside of a library in a community center, and that's where she trains and practices.
Yep.
That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
That's the infrastructure and foundation that exists. And you may say, well, that's cool. That's raw. Yeah, that's cool. But when it's raining, what? Right? And you may, it's just a little rain. You toughen up. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, if you really want to see something go, you have to create environments and foundations that are going to be conducive for that. And that's what
Absolutely.
It sounds like you're doing.
And we would love to see more longevity. And the knowledge that all these other sports have about recovery, about nutrition, about, and I don't think that then makes us all sports minded, right? But like, I'm still going to go out and party and drink sometimes. But now I do know how to take care of myself on the other end, right? Versus like going out and partying and drinking and then having no idea about the recovery part of things, about the nutrition part of things, about like, and all the way down to like warming up and stretching and stuff. These aren't things that we did as breakers.
Yeah. I mean, you have a tracker, you have a Whoop band that's telling you like how you're doing.
And that's changed, like, specifically my sleep. That has changed my sleep drastically. I didn't used to, I was like, oh, okay, I'll do a couple of days of like 5 hours of sleep because I know by the weekend I'll be able to sleep 10 hours and like make it up, right? Like that has, even just in like getting home or even not scheduling things too early in the morning, because now I know that like my sleep is better if I can sleep till 9 or 10. Like, so it's like what people kind of think of as common sense. But if you don't have it there in front of you, like, even if we were trying to pay attention, we'd just be kind of swinging blindly.
Which is interesting because no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome is for you, you've at least got an education now. You have an education on sports science. Like when it comes to high-low performance, you've dialed every single aspect of that. And just that packaged in a way that somebody else can take it on and carry it and use it is amazing. And it transcends breaking. And
Absolutely.
an indicator for me is that when we get to a place where parents are saying, I'm putting my kids into breaking, just like they say, I put my kids into soccer, I think that is the biggest indicator of that's the inflection point. And that's not selling out. That's not watering this craft down. It's not anything other than saying our foundation is more robust and we can carry more weight. Bring it on.
It's when it's to that point, that means that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people, right? Like when there's just room for one, it's everybody thinks it's about being that one, but what they don't realize is that means there's no actual, like you're saying, infrastructure or anything, right? So we actually want to bring more people up, like get more people to understand the business side, understand the recovery side, understand these other sides, so that an infrastructure can build, so that there can be multiple opportunities for people. We need a lot of people doing it in order for there to be leagues and scholarships to schools and all these other things that sports has access to, is because there's a lot of people doing it. You still have to be great at it to get the scholarships. And if anything, that's going to enhance it, because people are really, like, even now, people are getting better. Like, I'm watching the B-girls on Team USA get better at breaking.
It's incredible.
It's not watering it down. They're getting better at breaking because of these access points that they have now, and the ability to battle often and on a high level against high competitors and travel and do all this stuff. And that comes with having a lot of people doing it, not with having one person be the best.
Yeah, there's so many teaching points and lessons learned along this way, and we are seeing the craft of breaking being pushed to new levels, and that's something that is undeniable and exciting to be a part of.
Yeah.
My brain is going in many different directions. One of them, for some reason, I'm just gonna like test the waters here, see what happens. Why breaking as a representation at the Olympics and not ballroom?
This was tricky because I don't know a lot about ballroom, right?
How about just like contemporary dance?
So I was like, my assumptions may be totally off.
Or ballet.
But for me, ballroom, ballet, these like studio-based dances, often at a very early age, weed out people that can't afford them. There are forms that historically take money to access. Breaking is something that, we're outside of libraries breaking, like we go to the park, we're in each other's houses. It's something that's accessible on a community level to people that don't have money. And so I think that in itself is a really important thing, that these sports, anything that gets to a high platform has a way to be accessible, not just to the select few that have the resources. And I think that's also something that we have to be careful of as breaking grows, right? Is that it doesn't turn into something where there's like the gymnastics gyms that train great breakers that cost a lot of money that people can't have access to, especially because this dance form didn't come from people with money. it came from Black and brown culture out of New York that specifically did not have money. And so that's, I think, what gets a little dangerous with it moving into this field, but that's what's so beautiful about it right now. No one that you are seeing, very few people that you're seeing came up in the studio world first. People weren't ballerinas first and then like got into breaking. It was like we were able to find it and continue to practice it in free spaces with community, with people that were willing to share with us. Yeah, it's an access thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very, very interesting. And it's something, you know, there's many, I can approach this from so many different perspectives, but just like thinking about gymnastics, I did gymnastics. In order for me to learn certain tricks, I needed to have a certain equipment, like at least a mat or some spotters. People had to spot you to do something, to like learn a backflip, for example. And that's not something that everybody has access to. So something that you can do on your own at home without any equipment is powerful. And the fact that you, and when I say you, I mean the breaker, has evolved a progression for all these high-level moves that allows you to do it on your own, I think what it's doing is really encouraging autonomy. And more than ever, I mean, just look at this damn pandemic. I don't trust the government for a second. I don't trust the media for a second anymore. Like, you guys suck. I don't think I could have done it better, but you guys
100%.
clearly don't know what you're doing.
100%.
So more than ever, we need more autonomy and we need to take ownership. I think breaking teaches that. The other thing that we're seeing is from an academic perspective, look at all these Ivy League colleges, or look at just getting a degree in the United States. It costs so much money, and then you're in debt for the rest of your life. That system is crumbling. And this kind of, in my eyes, seems like I forget who started this, but in like homeschooling, there's this philosophy of unschooling, which is saying we're going to use structure and curriculum, but the curriculum is not the one that is like standardized testing, get you to college, but it's like, let's find the thing that you're really interested in, and let's leverage that as a way for you to learn everything else. Breaking does that. Because all of a sudden now here you are, dancer, artist, but now physical performer, athlete. Holy shit. Yeah, I have to have a business management, bookkeeping, marketing. You know, like, what are all these things?
Totally. And it is that like do it yourself. Like it's something that I've always known about myself is if I need to figure out a way to make something happen, or specifically to make money, there's a way. That doesn't have to be searching for a job, right? Even like the t-shirt production, or during pandemic, like offering the classes online and like building an actual, it wasn't just like one-off classes, it was an actual program so that it held more value, and like, but this kind of hustle mentality of figuring things out. I think we do learn that from like figuring out breaking, figuring out how to get upside down, figuring out like, yeah, we don't have the classes that gymnastics has. And even with breaking, it's like you can have all the high level moves you want, but you still have to do them in a creative, original, independent way. There's no like, you know, do windmills and this is the form that it's supposed to, you know, there's a bad way to do them if you don't have, but the added flavor, the added individuality that's on top of it, you're never just learning a move. You're learning to move and then you're making it yours. And so then we can kind of go out into the world and like make these other things ours.
Yeah. Fascinating. And I love it. And I think individuality is key to the evolution of society as a collective. Yeah. But being able to do that in a way that keeps everybody involved and connected is important. So it's kind of like individual performance with the intent, or at least positive intent, of trying to bring everybody up with you.
Yeah. And I think, you know, historically, that's like bring your people, your crew, your chosen family up with you. And now we're seeing this shift of like, bring your country up with you, or like bring breaking as a whole up with, like, people are shifting that mindset to include a broader scale of things, right? And I think that's cool too. It's interesting also, you know, you brought up government, and it's like, we're going to be representing the U.S., and never in my life have I wanted to wear the flag. Like, I don't, you know, and so
I'm
like,
gonna lean in. Talk to me.
Manage not being down for like the majority of what this country believes in, but then also this is where breaking started, right? And there's a whole different side of this country that's like not what you see in the politics, and not what you see on the news, and not, you know, and how do I represent that and not that?
Well, what you just said is what Team USA, and I'm speaking out of pocket here, I'm just making it up, but from what I've heard and what I see, and just years of me wanting to like be in that little thing and knowing a lot of people that have been there, that's what they want people to say. But you are not just saying it, you're feeling it. And you're not even on the team technically. You know? So it's like, come on, let's go.
I'm like, I want to be on the team, absolutely. But regardless, I want Team USA to do well. Like, I want the best person going into the Olympics. If that's me, great. If it's not me, great. Like,
yeah. Hard shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Randy, you're doing it, and I'm inspired by you, as I tell you often, but I really mean it. I am inspired by you, meaning that you breathe life into me, and you give me maybe it's insanity to want to just keep doing this, but I don't know. But you give me the hope that the effort that those who are creative, those who care about their craft deeply and continue to nurture it, that they belong and that they have a place here, and that they can make a positive impact in others, and that impact is going to be enough to support those who are choosing to be the real ones, so to speak. I believe that about you, and that's it's cool. I just like being close to that fire. I'm just like selfishly like, give me more, Randy. This is awesome.
Well, thank you. You definitely help stoke the fire all the time. So I appreciate you. I honestly, I wouldn't be this far if it weren't for you.
It goes both ways. Randy, how can people support you? What should they look out for? Yeah, sell us a little bit.
Yes. A big way to support right now would be to follow the journey. You know, share, like, comment on IG, all of that. Especially if we're being really frank, like as we get into looking for sponsorships and stuff, having the sponsors see that there's an active audience is always super, super helpful, and free for the active audience. I'm also selling some apparel. This one is my first line, Sit Like a Lady, for all the times I've been told to do something like a lady. But almost sold out, but there's a couple left if you're interested. And then there'll be another line coming out. They're all going to be small batches, limited runs. But even just seeing people out there wearing it already, like at practices and stuff, that feels like support as well. It's just any good energy you can send, and keep me in your thoughts on May 6th, I guess.
That's awesome. And here's my call to action is, if you go on the site, or you actually, if you go to Randy's Instagram and you ask her for the sizes that are left, buy it even if it's not in your size. Okay, gift it to somebody. Take a picture of it. Share it on Instagram. Tag Randy. Come on.
I appreciate that. Yes, they make a great gift.
Yeah, they're a great gift. They're a great cause.
You can like cut
And-
it up a little bit if it fits differently, make a little crop top.
Yeah, and this is not just like a copy and paste kind of thing. This is limited edition, a design that you've been working on for a while. You have taken the effort to customize it as much as one can customize merch when focusing on training full time.
And all designed and printed and everything within the community. So I drew up the mock. There was another dancer from Florida that made the final design. And then a b-boy here in Los Angeles that actually screen printed the shirts. So all within the community, all feeding back into the dance community.
Nice. So by breakers, for breakers, and inclusive for other people to be a part of the community and support this thing going forward. And this is just like one of the things. If you know people, sponsors, anybody who wants to see breaking rise, if you want to endorse Randi, go direct to Randi and reach out. Every single little bit helps. And it doesn't end May 6th. Like this goes now for a long time. This is never ending. So
absolutely.
Yeah, Randi, any final words, any final thoughts, anything you want people listening or the breaking community to know about you?
Just that it's been a wild ride, and that if I do, make it to the team or make it to the Olympics, that I will do my due diligence to represent things correctly.
I like it. Randi, thank you so much. We'll have to do this again and
free.
follow up with all the success.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, God.
I do what I want, I do what I like. I know what face, I no fear nobody. Nobody. I do what I want, I do what I like. I know what face, I no fear nobody. Nobody.